Welcome, Amanda Morgan. Thank you for joining me in this recording. So, the main focus of our chat today is going to be about your journey through education and how you got to where you are today. And I hope that some of our students listening, maybe all of them, will just feel inspired and encouraged to follow their own passions and believe in themselves, and maybe take some tips from you on how to get there. I just wanted to ask you, tell us about your experience as a student at our school. I'm going to put a picture up of you for them to look at of you in your sixth form years.
This is my sixth form years, but prior to that, I don't know, I was going through the motions like everybody else would. It all seemed pretty normal. I enjoyed studying, I enjoyed learning, and I was kind of average in a lot of my subjects. I took to maths and science in particular. Wasn't really a fan of English and history, didn't really like writing essays, but ultimately, yeah, school it felt like it was never going to end for a while, but that was my experience.
But it did.
It did.
But I know that when you were at school, you had your own battle. Lots of our students would say to me, school is hard. I think a lot of staff would say, school is hard. And there is so much going on in a young person's life that actually makes it really hard to make studying that top priority. And you had your own battle. Okay. I know that you were actually diagnosed with cancer whilst you were at school. During your exam years nonetheless. And if you don't mind, can you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. So I was pretty much entering my GCSE exams, and on my 16th birthday, I was diagnosed with T-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I think after that, I had a choice whether to take some time out of school to obviously fight this disease, or to continue on. And I decided to continue on with my education because I didn't feel like I was going anywhere, despite having this life-threatening disease. And I didn't want to be set back with my, future. And also it was a nice sense of normality for me. It meant that when I was okay, I was able to go into school and see my friends, and I didn't want that to go away because that was my normality. And also there's only so much you can do in hospital as well. So, so many episodes of Friends you can watch and films you can watch. So eventually, studying for me was my pastime as well.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And I think that you've sort of mentioned that studying became your distraction from your illness, which I think is really interesting, because before that it sounds like school kind of was an everyday thing and maybe you didn't give it much thought, and then it almost become your escape. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was exactly that. And I don't know, like I said, I did enjoy learning. I still enjoy learning, and that's, I don't know, I guess it's one of my passions. I love to learn. And actually, the A levels that I took, I ended up self-teaching most of it, especially in the first year, because the first year of chemotherapy treatment was really intense. So I was in hospital a lot. And I was just using the course books to just go through them. And whenever I was, feeling okay or bored or whatever, I mean, there was only so many Sudoku puzzles and things like that you could do. So I don't know. Maths was my equivalent to challenging my mind whilst I was in hospital.
I think that's really impressive. And from looking at your pictures and hearing your story, you must have been really poorly at times, if not from the illness, from the treatment that you received. And what I find really amazing is that you didn't just throw in the towel with your studies. You actually had the resilience to keep aiming for these top grades. And I guess what I want to ask you is, how did you find that strength, not just to continue with your studies as a distraction, but to try and go on and get such good grades? Because I'm going to ask you in a minute what you got, and I know they're quite impressive.
Ultimately, I believed in myself. I mean, I'm always trying to prove to myself that I can do, great things. And for me, I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned what exactly I studied, but in the first year I was studying maths and ICT. Initially, I was also doing French and biology, but that was too much for me for that first year. And then I ended up taking on physics. And I think my choice around that was because out of all my GCSEs, I got mostly A's, but that was the one B that I got. Between that and English, I got a B. And actually, I wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. And not only that, it was one of out of all the sciences.
Wow.
Yeah, all the sciences, it was the one that I enjoyed the most as well. So I wanted to prove to myself that I can, do better than that B. So that's kind of why I chose it as well. It was a challenge.
I think that's brilliant. I know that when our girls open their GCSE results and they see them, and maybe if you get that grade you wasn't expecting or you wanted a bit higher, I mean, maybe the message there is, well, if you were expecting higher, go on and prove that you can rather than give it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm skipping forward a little bit in time here to a picture of you when you're a little bit older and your
Yeah.
hair's very short. Can you tell me a little bit about this picture?
Yeah. So the first time, obviously, I lost my hair through chemotherapy, and it wasn't a choice. And eventually, I grew my hair, and it went all the way down to my hips. And I don't know, I just had an urge. This was after I actually finished university. I had an urge to cut it off and donate it. I just kind of wanted fresh hair again, and this time it was a choice, and that was really, really liberating for me.
Good, thank you. That's lovely. Go back in time a little bit then. So remind me again, if not sure if we've mentioned it yet, what grade did you achieve at the end of year 13?
So I ended up getting all A's in maths, ICT, physics, and AS further maths.
Well done you, and much
Yeah,
better than that be at GCSE then.
yeah, yeah. And that was actually being after being told that nobody ever leaves the school with all A's. So
Well, it's
yeah,
not true.
yeah,
You
that's
proved
really
that.
well. Yeah.
We've had many students prove it since as well. So
Okay.
you've got your 3 A's, you know, I assume by this point you were cancer free or at least in remission.
Yes, I was in remission. The chemotherapy lasted 2.5 years, and my A levels actually, I ended up taking 3 years to do them because I picked up physics in the second year, and I needed to finish it in the third. So I ended up taking AS further maths in my third year as well.
Okay. And then what did you do with those grades? Did you go to university? What did you study?
I did go to university, yes, and I needed those A's to get into the university that I wanted to go to, and I wanted to go to King's College London, and I wanted to study biomedical engineering. And initially, actually, I applied for computer science with management, and I got into the university through that because they just needed 2 A's and a B, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get that A in physics. So
Okay.
I took that course as my kind of backup, knowing that if I get that A in physics, I wanted to switch to the biomedical engineering course, and that's what I did when I got that A.
I mean, biomedical engineering sounds pretty amazing. Just give us a little snapshot about the sort of things you study if you're going to do biomedical engineering.
Yeah, so you do need maths and physics in order to do engineering, I think any engineering generally. But yeah, the reasoning I chose biomedical engineering was out of all of the engineering, it it kind of took my interest more, especially after going through, the health issues that I just went through. I definitely didn't want to be a doctor and be in hospital all the time, but actually by biomedical engineering, it incorporates the maths and the physics and the ICT and everything that I'd studied at A levels all in one. And it isn't just like a pure subject. I didn't want to just do maths all day or just do physics all day. It combined everything, and it was practical as well. So you get to apply it to practical skills. I got to, work on sensors and prosthetics and all of these things, which I found really cool. And I think a lot of people mistake it for tissue engineering. It's not biology. It was more, actual like mechanical engineering and building the technology and devices and machinery and scans and things like that around the medical industry. So it was fascinating. Yeah.
And you enjoyed your course?
Oh yeah, it was challenging beyond belief, but again, it was one of those things that I, for some reason, go towards the things that really challenge me. I just think there's no point in doing something if it's not going to challenge you. And, if it's easy, it just isn't, it's almost not worth getting. So for me, yeah, I want to be something, I want to, if I'm going to go to uni once, and I was hit with that 9 grand a year, and I want to have something that I could be proud of.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because university is very expensive. There's no way of getting around that. It's not just the £9,000 a year for the fees. You've obviously got to support yourself. You've got, to make the most of it. And when young people say to me, oh, I really want to go to university, but I don't really think it's worth it. I don't want to leave with 50, £60,000 of debt. I always say, when I went to university, that was the best 3-4 years of my life at that time. So what would you say to our young people listening who have, they want to go to university, but they're just worried about that cost and the debt? Is it really worth it?
Yeah. So if you want to go to university, you should absolutely go to university, because the options for all of the, the help that they give you to pay, it's there. So the option to go is there. And also when it comes to the finances and paying it off afterwards, you have to be over a certain salary anyway for them to start taking out. They take it out of your salary directly, so you don't even notice it. And then it just pays off over time. But for me, I was the first year to be hit with 9 grand a year. And I obviously, that was a worry for me as well when that happened. So I had choices to go away from home or go to universities close to home so that I can save money and not pay on the living cost. So I obviously I decided to stay, home to save that kind of money and still be able to experience university just closer to home. So King's College London was a great university, and I'm really glad that I went there. And I still have that freedom, even if I was, living at home.
I think we'll go on to talk about some of the jobs you've done a bit later on, but in terms of is it worth it for the experience, it sounds like it absolutely was. But for the payback now, do you feel like, through your salary, and I won't be so rude to ask what it is, but do you feel like it was worth it in terms of what you're now getting out of life financially?
Absolutely, especially if you go into STEM. Like it pays off tenfold. You won't have financial problems. You'll walk into, high 20s to 30k jobs straight after university. The opportunities are endless. It's not just about programming all day or doing maths all day or being in a lab. You can do anything you want in tech, even if it's UX designers or, there's creative things in tech. So when it comes to tech, the field is so vast. Make sure you do your research, but the pay is really good. So as far as the university fees goes, I wouldn't even worry about it.
Brilliant. I mean, I've always said to the young people I teach, study what you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Really you want to, and eventually someone will pay you for that skill. But certainly with STEM, it sounds like it's a good bet.
Yeah, and especially for women, they're looking for people like you.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to that in a bit as well, but I couldn't agree with you more with that one. I mean, just, to make this podcast a bit about me for a moment, I actually studied biomedical science at university, and I will never forget that feeling the first time I went into a real university lab. It was huge. It was full of pipettes and machinery and equipment. Everyone was in a lab coat, and it couldn't have been further from my experience of a school lab. And I remember it being the best feeling in the world to finally be in an environment surrounded by like-minded people. And I don't think I can ever forget that feeling, really. And for those that are listening, even if it's not science they want to go into, regardless of the field, if you go to university and you are immersed in the field that you like, it's really, really special experience. And I really wanted to just ask you, do you have any sort of amazing memories from university or experiences across that time that you attended that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at university, like you said, you are amongst like-minded people, and especially when they're on the same courses as you. And for me, it was really challenging, but I had a support network of people around me for that as well. But yeah, I mean, at university, you end up doing so many different societies that you can join. There's something for everyone. I ended up doing breakdancing, and then I ended up doing Tough Mudders afterwards. Especially, that was such an experience for me because I had actually full body muscle wastage from having all that chemotherapy treatment and being in hospital so much. So for me, this was such a milestone. And this was in 2015. And I trained so hard for it, and I actually had a fear of running prior to doing this just because my muscles would just buckle from underneath me every time I tried. So this was a major milestone for me, yeah. And this
So
was
this
my
you,
university.
someone with a fear from running, you decide to run over a pile of logs on fire.
Yep. And that's my sister next to me.
She
Yeah.
looks more scared than you. And I really love this picture. You look really strong here, and really you would never guess from this picture that you'd ever had a fear of running.
No. Yeah. And I had to go back and help my sister once I did my one.
Oh, that's amazing. So what happened after Well, actually, no. Tell us first of all, when you finished, what did you graduate with? Tell us a little bit about the end of your course.
Yeah. So I actually, when I chose biomedical engineering, in the first year, I was quite nervous because it was probably one of the most challenging degrees you can choose, and I wasn't sure if I could even achieve it. And I definitely didn't want to be that first year dropout. So I ended up working really hard in that first year just to make sure I wasn't going to be that first year dropout. And I remember my mum saying, don't worry, Amanda, if this doesn't work out, you could just choose another subject. And she kind of doubted me a bit. So this was a challenge that I really wanted to push myself and prove to myself that I can do. And in that first year, I was bordering on that first. After that, I just made it my mission. I just wanted to get that first.
And for those students listening who maybe aren't sort of knowledgeable, what are the grades at university? What's the best grade you can get?
So the best grade you can get is a first, and under that it's a 2-1, then it's a 2-2, and then it's a third. And most corporate companies require a 2-1, and a first is 70% and above.
That's amazing. And you graduated with a first class?
I did, yes.
Did you say you extended it to a master's?
Yeah, so initially it was going to be a bachelor's, and then after the second year, because I was hitting the grades, I was allowed to extend it to a master's of engineering. So I ended up with a first class in a master's of engineering. Yeah.
Oh, well done you. I hope you had a lovely celebration on that day.
Yes, I did. I was doing a very nice meal.
So what happened after university then? Where did you go?
Yeah, so in my final year, I was applying for graduate schemes, and I really wanted to get an engineering graduate scheme. And I ended up getting a graduate scheme at Jaguar Land Rover. So that was my first, this was in my induction day at the Rico Arena. And I ended up moving to the Midlands for this graduate scheme. And it was a rotational graduate scheme. So every 3 to 4 months, you get to choose where you want to go, and you arrange your placements. And I ended up doing different things around the business. One of them I was working on 2030 to 2050 autonomous vehicles, and another one I was working on global strategies for the company and where we're heading in terms of the field of transportation. And yeah, it was a really exciting graduate scheme to work on, actually.
Oh, that's good. And what about after that? Are you still working for
No.
Rover?
Yeah, so the Midlands wasn't quite for me. Whilst I was finishing that graduate scheme, and I knew I wanted to come back to London, and the engineering field is huge. And like I said, the tech field is huge, and you can do so many different things. It's almost overwhelming sometimes to try and narrow that down to a niche or to something specific. And obviously with a graduate scheme, you're trying so many different things. Eventually, you kind of need to pick something. And for me, it was about picking something that was going to be lucrative, that was in demand, that I can apply my skills, and also that I was going to enjoy. The skills that I had in London, and I wasn't really interested in doing a PhD, and obviously that's the biomedical engineering side of things. That's where that would have taken me, and I wanted to go into industry. So I was looking into things like software engineering, but that wasn't quite my background. And I know that obviously you guys are learning programming in school, and I didn't have that opportunity. So for me, programming, you guys will come out and just squash me like a bug, So I needed something that I was going to be able to keep up with as well. So I ended up going into data science, and because I'd covered machine learning and AI at university, it enabled me to take that further. Essentially, with data science, you're taking data and manipulating it in a way with machine learning algorithms so that you can forecast, you can analyze data, you can do something called like natural language processing. But now that has led me into the data field, which again is just such another massive field in tech, but is also really lucrative and really in demand. Everywhere is growing a data team. Everyone wants a data analyst and data engineers and data scientists. And of course, do your research in these kind of areas, and I really recommend it. But that's where I'm at the moment.
I think it's interesting because you went to university and you obviously did a degree that you were passionate about.
Yes.
But it has taken you in a direction that you wouldn't necessarily have thought for yourself, but it opened doors, it created the pathway. I think that's what it's all about.
Exactly. And when you're in school, you just get told about traditional corporate companies. And when I on one of my placements at Jaguar Land Rover, I ended up working in one of their sister companies called Emotion, and they were a venture capitalist. They essentially invest in startups, and that's where I got introduced to the startup world, which I didn't even think about before. And that's such a different world, because if you work for a startup, you end up so much more responsibilities, and you get exposure to so many different things because there's less people in the company. And that was really exciting, and they're working on cutting edge things, and it's not just kind of corporate office life. It's really, young and vibrant, and you're in your own clothes. You don't have to worry about wearing suits or anything fancy, and they give you breakfast.
Or breakfast, you're just selling it with everything you've said before this. They were arming and ahhing, but you mentioned breakfast, and they are storming the doors to sign up.
Yeah, free breakfast.
I think it's interesting. I did some research before our chat to have a look at the number of females in STEM careers, and it is widely acknowledged that STEM careers are very male dominated. The latest figures show that just 15% of engineering graduates are female. The percentage of women in STEM for technology and mathematics are 19% for computer science and 38% for maths. And the shortfall is hardly surprising when we consider that only 13% of the overall UK STEM workforce is currently female. And so really there are very few female role models out there as a consequence.
Yeah.
Employers, should employers be actively targeting females with those qualifications? Should they be positively discriminating, for females to get more female role models into STEM? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, they are actively looking for women in this field. It's been proven that businesses with a balance of men and women and diversity are actually more successful. So they're actively looking for more diversity and more women, but ultimately there's just not enough people for those positions in the first place. And it's not necessarily about positively discriminating in terms of choosing women over men. It's just there's so many positions available. They don't even need to do that, but there's just not enough women applying.
So it's our responsibility then as teachers and as young girls listening to actually take these roles and consider them, because it sounds like there's no better time to be a woman and thinking about science.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Go back 100 years and you'd have no chance. Now they're calling out for the young minds that we've got at school today.
Yeah, they are. And it's funny because whenever I work with women, they're amongst the highest performers.
Oh, well, there you go. So not only is it right to balance the sort of male-female pay sheet, but also they're very good at their job. So go women.
Yep. So don't doubt yourself. Yes, believe in yourself. You can do it.
I haven't got the figures to hand, but I did hear something that men will apply for a role even if they only think they hit 50% of the required skills on the job application sheet, whereas women will only apply if they think they've got sort of 90 to 100% of the skills. So one of my pieces of advice to the girls listening is you really got to believe in yourself, and if you see a job that you want and you think you are qualified, go for it.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to come looking for you.
Yeah. And there's also other routes into it. So if you don't think university is for you, there's other options as well with apprenticeships and things like that. And there's like even Jaguar Land Rover offer really good apprenticeship schemes and things. So I definitely look into that as well as options.
I think that's good advice, and I definitely would recommend that as well, because not everybody follows the same path.
Exactly. But you can end up in the same place at the end of it.
Yeah, a happy place, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you really, what do you think has been some of the best things that has happened to you as a result of working within STEM careers?
For me, it's the exposure and the opportunities. So I've had the exposure to so many different really kind of cutting edge things, but also, for example, I'm currently in Malta, and I don't think I would be here had I not been in the tech field, because I'm now in a tech industry in Malta. I'm riding out the COVID wave by the beach. So for me,
don't be too jealous.
That and getting paid very well to do it. So it just opens so many doors.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
But finally, then, so I know that you're working in sort of data analysis, data science, I think you said, but I know you've got a little side project at the minute called Amanda Bot. Okay. I've got a great picture. Well, explain to us, what is Amanda Bot?
So I was going through a bit of a tough time last year, as probably a lot of people were in 2020, just crazy year. But I ended up, losing a lot of weight, and I needed to pick myself back up again. And I ended up making a home workout program, just as a way to channel that energy that I had into something that was positive and that was going to build me back up again and could also bring others up again. So as part of this program, I also built a chatbot using Facebook Messenger, which enables me to deliver the program to people directly. It gives you reminders, to do your 20-minute workout every day or every other day, depending on which program you choose, and gives you words of encouragement to keep going.
See, I think this is interesting because you've taken the age-old problem of struggling to have motivation to exercise, and you've kind of given it a modern solution, which is essentially like a kind of AI fitness coach, which has no capacity to judge you, but can give you the little boot up the bottom and say, come on, it's time to do your daily exercise. And Right in Thinking gives you guides, like little videos to follow.
Yes, yeah. So I film them as home workouts.
I think that's really for me, what STEM is all about. It's about trying getting the skills and the experience to sort of fix problems which maybe 5 years ago didn't exist, or solutions to problems we wouldn't even have considered. Imagine 10 years ago saying that Facebook will have a messenger system which will help you with your own at-home workout and give you all the advice you need.
Exactly. And I'm not going to be a personal fitness instructor all of a sudden. So for me, it was a way of being able to, give something to this field and automate it in a way.
Using technology.
Exactly.
So I'd like to sort of to wrap this up and ask you, what words of wisdom do you think you can offer the young people listening today?
I would say, believe in yourself, follow the things that you enjoy, challenge yourself. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do anything, because like I said, I was told that I can't achieve all A's, and I did. So, and I had people doubting me along the way all the time. People will always doubt you. And I think, especially being a woman in this world, you get doubted a lot. I don't know. I feel like the world doesn't really expect much from you, but you can do so much more than you think. And this was my board that I had up on my wall, I think after my first year of uni, when I managed to get that, get past my first year. And I set myself that goal to achieve my first in a Master's of Engineering, something that I thought I would never have been able to do, and was really challenging because it was something that it wasn't a given. I didn't know whether I can achieve it or not. And I knew it was going to take a lot of work to get there. And these are the words that I wrote down to keep myself on track, to stay positive, because I knew there was going to be a lot of ups and downs, and there was, of course. One thing I would say is, you wouldn't be given a dream that you aren't able to fulfill. So if you can dream it, then you can achieve it.
Thank you. I'm in awe, really. And I just want to thank you, Amanda, for sharing your success with us. I mean, you are a local woman. You attended the same school as the girls that are listening. So, this is entirely possible for them. You obviously faced unbelievable difficulty when you overcome your cancer, and also all of the challenges you faced in your studies since. And ultimately, you are a woman in STEM. You're a real woman, I think, with a really inspiring story, and I'm really grateful for you taking your time to speak to me. And I also wish you all the best of luck with the Amanda Bot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me back here. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope it inspires others to pursue their dreams.
Thank you.